Hello and welcome to Digitech. Today we are doing an introduction to if statements. If statements are one of the most foundational and fundamental parts of programming. You'll use them in any language and any program. They are what makes your program do something different each time it's run. So a program that does the same thing over and over, it could save a bit of work, but it's not going to do much thinking. And if you want your program to do different outcomes depending on the input, then an if statement is how you achieve that. So for example, if you had a web page and you wanted it to show one thing when the user was logged in and a different thing when they weren't, then an if statement is how you would check whether they were logged in or not. So this project that we're doing today is just going to be a really basic one to show the syntax of how to write an if statement. And once you've got the syntax for an if statement in one language, you've pretty much got it in every single language. They have a very, very similar structure across most languages where you just check some kind of statement, like is this thing true or false, and one block of code will run if it's true, and a different block of code will run if it's false. So with our login example, if the person is logged in, it might show them one page, and if they're not logged in, it'll show them a different page. The key there is that it'll either show one or the other, not both, and that's something that you need to be aware of when you're working with if statements. So here you can see I'm just setting up the project, just getting the link to jQuery. We'll need this for a couple of helper functions just to save on writing some code, some of the stuff that's not really key when you're learning how to do absolutely everything. So this will just save us writing a few lines that become a bit repetitive. And the next thing is to create our own JavaScript file. I'm just going to call it true or false.js. As soon as you see me write that .js, you can see in Visual Studio Code, little icon changes to JS to indicate that it's a JavaScript file. It can help find your files a little bit quicker when the icons are all nicely indicative. And if you're wondering how come my icons look a little bit different from the default ones, it's because I'm using the material icon extension. It just includes a few more icons for some of the files that I particularly work with. Now we've linked our HTML to our own JavaScript file and created that console log at the top of the JavaScript just to check that the link is definitely working. Sometimes a little typo in that script tag at the top of the HTML can mean that your JavaScript is not actually linked. And then you're sitting there writing code and wondering why it's not doing anything, clicking buttons and you get no output and you're double checking all of your code, when really it's just the link to the code that didn't work. So I find it can save a lot of headaches if you check that first. We'll just put in a paragraph so that we've got somewhere to output. And now we're getting into the actual JavaScript coding. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is a constant. I'm just going to call it thing. I'm going to set it to be true. Now a constant is slightly different from a variable. You can see I've created a variable for the result underneath. The difference between the constant and the variable is created with let, is that the constant doesn't change throughout the course of the program. So the result does change. It starts off empty, and then it might be the thing is true, or it might be the thing is false. It's going to get changed somewhere in the program, so it needs to be a variable because it varies. The constant never changes. It's always going to be true for the entire time that this program is run. I might change it in this code here and then rerun it again, but when it is run during that time, it doesn't change. Now you can see I'd finished writing the if statement there. The top line, if thing, is checking if that thing is true, then that line in there in the brackets will run. If the thing is true, then the result will equal the thing is true. Otherwise, or else, the thing was false. So you can see there's two chunks of code there, one under the if and one under the else. Only one of those two chunks of code will run, depending on whether thing is true or false. And you can see me playing around here, changing thing to true or false, and seeing which piece of code runs. So I'll try changing it back to true, save it, have a look, and you can see that only one of those two lines has run, and it's the one that's under the true section. So like any good coder, we've got to comment our code. The first thing is to make a quick note about the variables at the top, and you can see I'm writing the comments just with the double slash notation there. That means that those lines are going to be completely ignored when the browser is running the program. They're there just for other coders to read. So if you're passing your program along to someone, they can kind of have a look at the comments and not have to try and read the code. It can be a little bit quicker when you're just reading the comments to see what the program is doing. So we've got comments in our if section. So the top line, if the thing is true, then the next line that's indented will run. Otherwise, the line at the bottom will run. So here I'm using otherwise to mean the same sort of thing as else, just because, I mean, you could write else as well, but the code already says else, so the comments are supposed to add to it. So I'm just using a word that means the same, but just in case someone's not sure what else means, they can read otherwise, and hopefully they'll get it. There we have it. Creating some variables, we've got an if statement, one of the two lines will run, and then the output, depending on what condition was true. And that's our if statement.